Welcome, dear students. This lesson that we are going to talk about is from the book First Flight, lesson number 1, A Letter to God by G.L. Fuentes. The author is a Mexican author, poet, and journalist. He was also awarded national awards for being a very prominent writer of his times, and his most of the works were related with the Mexican Revolution, and he used to write a lot of about civil conflict of his times. He's one of the main and prominent figures in Mexican Revolution. A letter to God. Now, before we begin, I would want to bring your attention towards the faith that we all have in the Almighty. I am quite sure that all of you pray and ask for certain things from God. Irrespective of the religion, we all have this firm belief in God that if we ask for something from the God is definitely going to answer our prayers and is going to reward with the blessings or the things that we have asked for. The lesson is almost about the same thing, and with an exception of asking something by a very different and extraordinary way. Now, as I said, that we all pray, but we pray and ask. But the protagonist of this lesson, Lencho, asked from the God by writing a letter to him. Now, when I say by writing a letter to the God, do you think that it is possible to actually write a letter to the God? Because we certainly do not know the correct address. In order to post a letter, an address has to be written on it. So, keeping this thought in your mind, let us begin with the introduction of the lesson. The story highlights the faith in God of a very simple and a soft-hearted poor farmer. It is said that faith can move mountains. It is a very famous proverb that if you have intact faith in something, you can achieve even the impossible at times. Now the question is, does fate favor faith in the condition of the protagonist Lencho? And this is a question the story deals with. Now, who was Lencho? He was the poor farmer who had crop corn fields. He and his family lives at the top of a hill, and that was the only house in the entire valley, and the view from their house was really beautiful. Lencho, the poor farmer, is satisfied with the growth of ripe corn on his fields. He prays to God for one more little shower, and the family, the entire family, including Lencho, has been waiting since the initial beginning of the day, since morning, for this little shower, for the rain to come over and bless them so that they can have a great harvest. His prayer is even answered, and the dark clouds bring down big raindrops. Now, Lencho, as I said, was a farmer, and that his house stood on top of a low hill. It was the only house in the entire village. From there, they could keep a watch on his fields and see the beautiful river around. The ripe corns in his fields was flowering, and they were expecting a really good harvest. But what was important at that point in time was a good rainfall. And that is all they have been waiting for. Throughout the morning, he kept looking at the northeast sky. He got a hint that it was going to rain, and he gave his wife the happy news, his prediction that it is soon going to rain. The wife was not really excited, and if you can see on this slide, last fourth line, yes, God willing. The woman is Lencho's wife who answers upon being told that it is going to rain. She clearly says that yes, it will rain, but only if God wills. So from this we get a clear idea that not just Lencho, but of course the wife of Lencho also had this firm belief in God. She knew that by God's grace alone they could have a good harvest. Lencho's boys, the children, were working in the fields. The mother called them to come for dinner. It was during the meal that big drops of rain began to fall. So, the moment they have been waiting for and quite desperately waiting for the rainfall that comes over, the rains start. And Lencho went out in the rain to feel the touch of water on his body because it was really important for his crops to get the shower and get harvested. He remarked the raindrops were like big and small new silver coins. Now, why this metaphor? Why has he brought in this statement by comparing the raindrops to the silver coins? Because they were extremely important and precious for a farmer like Lencho. They were not just simple raindrops, they were actually the silver coins. They were like silver coins. Why? Because if they get a good harvest, of course, they are going to gain some amount of money, and they have been desperately waiting for the raindrops, and they the raindrops appear, the rain shower appears, and to this poor farmer, they appear to be like the silver coins, which were the hope for a great harvest and the reward of money out of the selling of the crops. With great satisfaction, he looked at the corn in the field. But soon, a strong wind began to blow. Along with the rain came down large hailstorms. These truly looked like new silver coins. Now, why these hailstones started looking like silver coins? Because they were white, their eyes, and I'm sure you people know that what are hailstones. Yes, so these hailstones were actually appearing to be like silver coins, not metaphorically this time, but of course, because they were white and they were actually like round in shape, like coins. And the boys, being very innocent, they started running around and trying to collect them. But Lencho hoped that the hailstorm won't last long. But it did not pass quickly. It hailed for 1 hour on the house, garden, the cornfield, and the whole valley. and the field turned white as if it was covered with salt. This hailstorm and the hailstones were so heavy, and it kept on pouring down this heavy hailstone that the entire valley was covered white, just like covered with salt. The hailstorm destroyed all the flowers, and it left not a single leaf on the corn plant. Now, there appears an irony over here. This family has been desperately waiting for a light rain, for a downpour, as it is termed in the lesson. What was the reason behind it? Because it was necessary for a good harvest, and the good harvest will bring money to them. But what happens that the rain does appear, but soon the weather changed and brought in hailstorm that had destroyed everything in the valley. The entire crops were damaged. And out of a heavy heart, full of sorrow and sadness, Lencho says that even a raid by locusts would not have caused so much destruction as the hailstones had done. And locusts, the meaning is also given over here, are the insects which fly in big swarms and destroy crops. And deeply saddened, he was also looking now dull and sorrowful because the future seemed dark. The entire family faced the danger of starvation. The crops actually were very important for this family. One reason, primary reason, is that they are farmers. Lencho is farmer, and the family belongs to a family of a farmer. And the crops are something that brings reward to the farmer. We all understand the importance of farmers in our countries. It is also said that without a farmer, we will be provided with no food, because the food that you eat in your normal life, apart from the junk food, of course, even for the junk food, somewhere, of course, farmers are, I think, the reason behind. But the basic ones, including your vegetables, your fruits, the grains, the cereals, everything that we have, the reason is that we have got farmers behind that. And this family suddenly, who was feeling really happy after this rainfall, turned out to be sad, because they were able to not get any hope after looking at the destroyed field. They were left with almost no hope. And what does Lencho say? This year we will have no corn. That night was a sorrowful one. All our work for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We'll all go hungry this year. Please try and understand the condition of this family, which is actually dependent on the field and the harvest for their survival of the entire year. And these hailstones had left them with almost nothing. But what happens later is even more interesting, okay? And as I said in the beginning, that this lesson has everything which is revolving around the faith in the Almighty. So, what happens next? In the hearts of all, there was a single hope. Only single hope, which is the help from God. They consoled one another that God won't let them die of hunger. Because Lencho says that he has heard, and people say, and it is said that no one dies of hunger. Now, why does he say so? Because it is believed that the food we eat comes from no one but from God. God itself is responsible for our survival, for the food that we eat. That is why considered the most, the biggest actually, the biggest blessings from the God. So that is why Lencho says in the lesson that don't be so upset. He's trying to console his family that don't be so upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, but remember, no one dies of hunger. But all through the night, Lencho thought only of one hope, and that one hope was the help of God. And Lencho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. Please do underline these lines. And this is also a metaphor where the qualities of an ox, you understand the ox is a domestic animal that works on the fields, and Lencho has got those qualities. He was a farmer, a dedicated one. Okay, he worked day and night in his farms, but unlike others, perhaps he knew how to write. So where there is this underlying importance also shown of education. If you know how to read and write, you have got a blessing in itself. So what does Lencho decide to do? Now, because he knew how to write, next morning he wrote a letter to God. I repeat, next morning he wrote a letter to God, requesting him to send him 100 pesos. And he needed this amount to sow the fields again and to survive until the next crop came. Now, children, while you are learning about Lencho, this farmer, do keep a notice of his traits and characteristics. He's not asking for money from God for his entire life. He's not asking for anything else. He's not giving up on working again on the fields. What is he asking from the God for? 100 pesos. Only to sow his field again and to be able to survive along with the family until the next crop came. So this also shows his characteristic and the quality of not giving up, A, and the important thing around which the lesson is evolving, which is the intact faith in God. Now also the question arises, why is he writing a letter to God? A, he is done with the prayers. Okay, he has asked for the rains did appear. But things changed for him. Now he has thought of something else and he wants to ask for the money. And he believes that the reason behind the destruction is of course God. Because God has sent these hailstorms also like he sent the rain. So he's asking for the money from God, but with an exception over here, that he decides to write a letter to God. Lencho himself went to the town to post the letter. The postman at the post office had a hearty laugh when he saw the address on the envelope. It was addressed to God. And as I said earlier, that we really do not know the correct address of God. When we pray from all our heart, from our soul, from our mind, but we do not exactly know the address. Nobody knows the address of the God. We believe that he stays up somewhere in the sky. He watches everyone. But how do we know that where exactly, how to locate him? And that is why, after looking at the address on the envelope, the postman at the post office, he started laughing. The postmaster he starts laughing and he takes the envelope, the letter to the postmaster. And the postmaster was greatly impressed by the farmer's faith. At first, he also laughed, but immediately he realized that this is not something ordinary that happens every day. This is something that has been written out of immense faith and immense belief in something that not at all any ordinary person would have ever thought of. So this postmaster was greatly impressed by looking at this person's faith, and hence, to keep his faith intact and not letting it shake, he decides to help Lencho. So they read out the letter, and then he realizes that he was asking for 100 pesos. So the postmaster decides to raise funds. Now, how to raise funds? That all of the employees over there at the post office would contribute some amount of money, and he himself, the postmaster himself, gave half of his salary, and rest of all also contributed some amount, and together they could only collect 70 pesos. They could only collect 70 pesos. But the requirement of Lencho was 100 pesos. But postmaster thought that at least this would help him out. So what he does is, he puts this money inside the envelope and he writes on the envelope, God. Because he also did not want what was the primary reason. This I would want you all to listen carefully and try to comprehend the reason behind postmaster's decision. The primary reason is to actually keep Lencho's faith intact in God, because he could immediately understand that this is something done out of innocence. And one more trait we get to know about Lencho is that he was truly innocent, because no one else would have done anything like that. He is writing a letter to God, being innocent and having this strong faith in God that yes, God will send the money to him. Also, postmaster thought of doing an act of charity. All of them have contributed the money in order to do an act of charity, which shows that during, at least till the time this lesson is being written, this this action proves that humanity is beyond and above everything. They did not know Lencho, yet they were ready to contribute money to this poor farmer so that the faith of the farmer is not shaken and they are also able to do some act of charity. And beyond this, postmaster did not disclose his identity or his employee's identity, because on the envelope he writes that it is from God itself. He writes God, that so that Lencho, when he gets this letter, he does not doubt that this letter is not being sent by the God. And what happens the next or the following Sunday? Lencho came to the post office to ask if there was a letter for him. And he was very sure that God must have sent him the reply and the money. And the postman also handed him happily the envelope. And Lencho showed no surprise. Okay, there was just no surprise because he had this belief in his head very clear that yes, he is going to get a letter from God. And when he opens it up, he got angry. Now, why he got angry? Because he wrote that he needed 100 pesos and he has received only 70 pesos. And he could not blame God for this. So he writes another letter to God and put it in the mailbox. He stamped it and put it in the mailbox. The postmaster and the employees were excited because they have done something from their heart and soul just to help a poor farmer, and that too who was a stranger. They were not helping a friend. They helped a stranger because they wanted to do an act of charity. And without even disclosing their identity, they helped this person, Lencho. So they were excited to know the reaction of Lencho and excited to know what was there in the reply of that letter. So the postmaster himself went to collect the letter and quickly opened the envelope. And the letter was addressed to God, but the letter this time said something that broke the heart of the postmaster and the employees over there. Now, I have already discussed the irony, the initial irony, that they were expecting a rainfall happens, but then it brings the hailstorm as well, and because of the hailstones, the entire crops are damaged. Here, the postmaster and the employees over there were expecting a reply full of gratitude and thank you. Of course, not to them, because Lencho, He did not know that the letter is being sent or the money is being sent by the postmaster and his employees. But to the God, they might have been waiting for a reply full of gratitude for God. But to their surprise, what happens? He requested, Lencho in the letter wrote that he had asked for 100 pesos and he has received only 70 pesos, and that the God should send him the remaining 30 pesos, but this time the money should not be sent to him by through the mail. He requested God to not send him the money, the remaining 30 pesos, through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. This reply or this letter certainly was not expected by the postmaster and his employees. They might have been waiting desperately for a very good and a positive and a thankful reply. And they were the ones who actually came forward to help Lencho. The letter never reached God. The letter could never have reached God because there is no address of God. But Lencho was so innocent and had this immense faith in God that he actually wrote a letter and expected money from God itself. But who is actually the embodiment of God here? The postmaster, because it was his decision, and his employees, those who have all contributed the money and sent this from the side of God to Lencho. But Lencho, of course, he did not know anything. He did not know the reality that the letter never reached God, and that the money has not been sent by God but sent by the postmaster and his employees only, the post office employees only. But what did he say? That do not send the money through mail to me, God, because these post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho thought that God might have sent, not even might have, I would say that he believed that God did send him 100 pesos, and the post office employees have stolen 30 pesos out of his 100 pesos and left only 70 pesos in the envelope, which is why he is requesting God to not send money through mail to him, so that again his money is not stolen. So this lesson ends with an irony that the ones who actually helped Lencho were blamed to be a bunch of crooks, and the reason behind the stolen money, according to Lencho. Where, of course, Lencho did not know the reality, and he, being too innocent, wrote another letter to God for asking another 30 pesos, the remaining 30 pesos, and calling the employees a bunch of crooks. So, children, throughout the lesson, it is proven that nowhere, even when the family was expected to die out of starvation, there was this single hope in his heart and mind, which is the help from God. He could only believe. The entire night he was only thinking of asking the help from God. So nowhere the faith is shaken, The faith remains intact even by the end of the lesson, although it is ending ironically, but still the faith exists in the same way, intact and not shaken at all. But of course, the reason behind the not shaken and intact faith were post office employees. Those who here appear to be the embodiment of God only, because they were the ones who helped him. Lencho is one character who is, who of course has got such blind faith in God, and somewhere he is also quite innocent and foolish. He appears to be foolish to believe that the letter will reach God and the God will reply to the letter, and that the money has come from God only, and that the post office workers were dishonest and cheats and have stolen his money. I hope the message and the extract of the lesson is clear to you, children. Thank you.